hope the sound on that is okay. If it isn't, please do let me know. It's too loud or not. Okay, so welcome, Dansei. The 7 grandfather teachings for character education is what I'm going to be presenting on today. Looking at how to use it in the classroom, and then for the overall school environment by some examples, particularly from people across Alberta that have used it. And I have an example from Manitoba as well that a Métis teacher has used. Today is brought to you by Alberta Regional Learning Professional Development Consortium, rather, ARPDC, and I am through one of the 7 consortiums, which is ERLC for Edmonton Regional Learning Consortium, and we are funded by Learn Alberta. Land acknowledgement before we get going. So Tansei, I live on Treaty 7 land. It's the ancestral home of the Blackfoot people here in Calgary. There are Dene and Métis Nation number 3 people, which I belong to myself as well. As though I can't speak today, I apologize. Sorry. Try that again. Rewind. And Manitoba Métis Federation as well. All have contributed to the shaping of Alberta and Canada. And I thank the Métis people and particularly the Blackfoot people for allowing me to live on their land. As Métis, we're across the homeland, but we are not First Nations. So we do live on the prairies and in the southern part of BC and into Ontario, into the Whiteshell is our original homeland. So if you know which territory you live on, or if you happen to be, oh, somebody's drawing on my presentation. That's interesting. Or if you're by a settlement or land that you're living on, oh, it's right across the whole thing. Maybe that's going to be across. I don't know what's happening. I apologize. I don't know how to get rid of that right now. All right. So who am I? Try not to ramble here. I just noticed that some interesting things happening, but Zoom had an update just last week. So I updated, and apparently that it gives you guys permissions to do things as well. So somebody may have accidentally done it. All right. ARPDC is now calling us designers of professional learning, which I think is a great title. Really looks at, the presentations that we do. They're primarily online now. 3D6, awesome, thank you. Due to COVID, right? It was one of the kind of the results of that, and it's proved to actually be very positive because as a consortium, we've been able to reach far more people than when we were doing face-to-face presentations. As we know in this busy world, I know for myself, it's often easier to, go to an online presentation many times than to try to get somewhere, all the other constraints that are happening in our lives. So for those of you who've seen me present before, like I said, bear with me as I introduce myself for those who don't know me. I am Red River Métis from what is historically known as Red River Settlement in Manitoba. My family is from north of Winnipeg, Selkirk, Manitoba. I attended school in Winnipeg. If you're Indigenous at all or Métis particularly, we identify ourselves by, who are you from and who are you? Who are your people? So my main family surnames are Mowat. My mom's a Mowat, McDonald, Mackay, and Beaudry. And the Beaudrys are a French voyageur Métis family, and there are also quite a few Mackays across the province as well. Somebody else in the chat. Can you turn up my volume? Okay. Can you hear that better now? Just turned it up again. A bit, okay. It may be on your end if nobody else is having any issues. You might want to maybe go out and come back in. That's the only other thing I can think of. Because like I said, Zoom has been doing some interesting things lately when they do an update. So you look up the top right-hand corner, you'll see a picture of a gentleman there. That's my great-grandfather, James Mowat. And beside that are his 4 surviving children. My grandpa is the middle boy, Rosser, and his brothers Stanley and Oliver, and his sister Tassie. If you've been to Fort Saskatchewan or if you've worked there, you'll know possibly that there's a school named James Mowat Elementary named after him, and Mowat Park is right beside it. In Edmonton, there's a trail named after him, James Mowat Trail. It's spelled with 2 T's. And I always tell everybody it doesn't really matter. The name was spelled M-O-A-D when they came to Canada, but a D is pronounced like a T with a Scottish accent. And the English, of course, didn't understand that, but that's okay. Like I said, I started teaching and I went to school in Winnipeg. I actually graduated from the same school division that I was teaching in, was Seven Oaks School Division. Right. And I was in the core area as well in Winnipeg. Moved to Calgary almost 30 years ago now. I worked in special education a lot over my lifespan and with Indigenous students. I also worked with an organization here in Calgary for almost 12 years with Indigenous girls at risk from ages 10 to 17 and various capacities with them. I also served on their board and as their education director at one point. And then I took a position, interestingly, it was very serendipitous. It just kind of appeared to me and it was amazing, online, creating curriculum for Kataskinou Tribal Council in Northern Alberta in concert with Ignite eLearning. And I took their grade 7 outreach program for them and their particular cultures there, and indigenized it for them and decolonized it. I added land-based learning and Cree language, and it was based around the seasons. So we went from fall, winter, and spring. So the 4 core subjects were all organized like that. And I was encouraged by everybody that was involved to continue this work, and really encouraged to help particularly non-Indigenous teachers with the task of trying to do some of this work, because I know it can be daunting for teachers, especially, and even Indigenous teachers, because there's so much colonization of education, and most of us didn't get to learn anything about our cultures as well. I learned through osmosis, even though we didn't really talk about it. Where I lived was all Métis people pretty much. And, my grandpa jigged and he fiddled, and, I got to hear him speaking Creole, though he wouldn't teach us. So I'm learning the language now. And, and being Métis, we were very colonized in the sense that people had to hide their culture because, even going into the 60s, they were still burning down villages. And there were Métis villages when people were away and things like that. So there's still a lot of quite bad things happening. So people didn't really talk about it. But yeah, we're all working on that now and regaining our cultures. And so I can share some of that with you guys. Yeah, that little line is through my presentations. I don't know what, anyways, let's see if I can get rid of it later. I just want to show you guys quickly the ARPDC resources. If you haven't seen them yet, there's quite a number of them, and they're really excellent. And they've been developed by Alberta teachers. So I'm guessing most of you have heard of Empowering the Spirit, because I know they even use that at the post-secondary level. Broken into foundational knowledge, learn leading classroom supports, and Orange Shirt Day and Beyond. And actually the Orange Shirt Day and Beyond has some really cool stuff. I don't have time to go through everything with you guys, but if you want to look especially at teaching tools, there's some really neat things you can print off, for instance, like posters for sharing circles and things like that I've used before in presentations. Yeah, and so, I just outline it here to show you there's that. So there's quite a few things there for you. And then if we go back to the ARPDC resources, if you haven't used these before, I encourage you to. They're really good. And like I said, they're already paid for and done by Alberta teachers, so you might as well use them. If you go to focus in particularly, we can go to First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and it'll bring up everything. So you'll see, and there's probably some stuff you've seen. I know Weaving Ways is a common resource that's available, but there's a few things on here too. And Education is Our Buffalo. I know I've seen that a lot in schools. I had a copy of it when I was teaching in schools. So there's a number of things there. You can also search by audience if you want to pare that down, or level, or the type of resource as well. If you wanted to use it for your TQS, looking for resources for that, it's available as well. And then there are some things available en français. And I know that teachers that I was working in collaboration with for Orange Shirt Day at the beginning of September, they are mainly French speaking teachers as well. And so they are working on getting all of those resources that are in that section available eventually in French as well. So that's exciting. Yeah, so I don't know how many of you know about the Seven Grandfather Teachings, but I'm going to explain a little bit about it. I'm going to show you, there's a video that I can show you as well. And then I've also got a lot of resources to help show you, as well as one that I helped develop with the Edmonton SPCA. It is elementary based, but I try to cover as many grades in here as possible and talking about this. So it is an Anishinaabe teaching, but with that said, excuse me, my voice just went. There are similar teachings across all Indigenous peoples' cultures. What's unique about this one in particular is that they use animals to identify each of the teachings. And so, especially for kids, and especially for the young ones, this is a really great way to be able to teach character education because, you know, children, especially the little ones, love animals. And so this really helps them to identify each of these particular character traits with a particular animal. The other thing is to understand too, because like I said, everyone has these kinds of teachings, the Cree as well, because they're the, besides the Blackfoot, other main, you know, biggest group, especially in northern Alberta, they have very similar teachings. The Cree have, they just don't identify them necessarily with the animals, and they're arranged a little bit differently, but that's true for every group of people. So I always encourage everybody to look to the culture that is closest to you and try to find out from them what their teachings are if they're willing to share those with you. So with that said, in these teachings, the eagle represents love, turtle is truth, the bear is bravery, the buffalo is respect, wolf is humility, Sabe is honesty, and the beaver is wisdom. And I'm going to show you this one. So this is a PDF that has a lot of various resources in it, and but it's got the story. So basically the story goes like this. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because I know the story. I think of it as the idea I compare it to Moses going to the mountain and getting the 10 Commandments, you know, from God in that sense. I remember always at Easter watching the movie with Charlton Heston, and you know, it's the same kind of idea in that sense that all of humanity is behaving contrary to the way Creator would like us to behave, and so he sends somebody to earth basically when the spirits to find, you know, or find a baby that's innocent, and this baby is innocent, much like the idea of Moses being a baby, originally being chosen. And he's chosen to deliver these teachings to all of humanity. And so as he goes through every 7 years, this individual has a spirit animal come to him from the 7 grandfathers that are inhabiting the bodies of these animals, and they give him these teachings. So the eagle comes to him and gives him a teaching about love. And then another 7 years, the turtle comes and it's true. So you get the idea. So by the time he's 49, essentially, in human years, he has received all the teachings, and he is going to be a great elder at this point, and he goes and he can teach the rest of humanity how they should behave and what are the correct ways to live. And a lot of that is based around, you know, the medicine wheel, because all of those teachings about all these things fall into it. And so there's just a lot of stuff in this document as well that will help you look at that holistic view of, you know, being a human being and living in a good way. So, you know, it's based in all of those things that we're taught. Like I practice Cree spirituality, and so these things are inherent in everything we do. You know, not to say that we all do them all the time and then we do them right. But you know, anybody can call us on it too if we're not behaving in a correct way. It's a responsibility of each of us to do so as well, right? So that's part of our teachings is, you know, to be able to be accountable to each other in our behavior and looking towards these types of things, right? How are we coming off to each other? So I just want to show you for younger kids, this is a reading of the 7 sacred teachings. And so I don't call it the 7 sacred teachings because I know, first of all, the public schools, you're not teaching in that manner, so we can just call them the 7 grandfather teachings. And also for those who are in faith-based schools, you have your own belief system, so they would not be your sacred teachings. So, and that's the other part of it too. This isn't Anishinaabe teaching, so it's not my sacred teaching either. This would be the 7 sacred teachings of the Anishinaabe people for me, right? So anyways, just to make that clear. And this particular video I like because for the younger ones, it's it doesn't push the spiritual end of it. It just kind of talks briefly about it, but just talks about the animals mainly. So I'm going to show you this first.
The story of the 7 sacred teachings.
Long ago, the 7 grandfathers decided to send the people some important teachings to help them live the good way of life. In Cree, we call this Mio Pamatsawin, the good way of life. A young boy was chosen to receive the grandfather's teachings of love, respect, courage, honesty, humility, wisdom, and truth. Many saw that these teachings were embodied by different animals. The eagle embodies the teaching of love. We say kihiu, that is the eagle in the Cree language. Kihiu flies high in the sky and brings with it the Creator's love. The buffalo, or Pasquamustus, sends us the teachings of respect. Pasquamustus is a large and powerful animal, but also has a gentle and giving nature. The people have always shown respect to Pasquamustus. The bear, or Musqua, sends us the teaching of courage. Musqua is fearless and brave and will face any challenge with courage. The Sabe, or Mistapio, embodies the teachings of honesty. Mistapio remains hidden, but reminds the people to be honest in all that they say and do. The wolf, or Mahegan, embodies the teachings of humility. Mahegan lives in a pack, and when playing with others or working for the good of the pack, it shows its humility. The beaver, or Amisk, embodies the teaching of wisdom. Amisk creates a home and a dam to make life better for itself. Now, that's wisdom. The turtle, or Miskinak, embodies the teachings of truth. Miskinak is one of the oldest animals on the planet, and it is a reminder that a person must understand all of the 7 sacred teachings to know the truth. The 7 grandfathers gave the people these teachings: love, respect, courage, honesty, humility, wisdom, and truth. It was important to the people to have all of these teachings in their life. Only a person following all the 7 teachings can live Mio Pimatsuin, or the good way of life.
I like that word too. My elder was using that last night at Cree class. I keep saying that, to live the good life. So that's just a kind of an overview for you, just to give you an idea for the younger ones in particular. There is a video you could show them as an introduction to the story. And then these resources are the ones that I was saying that for the Edmonton SPCA I consulted with them. What I did was I basically went over all the Indigenous particular aspects of these teachings to make sure that they were including them for the animals, because as the SPCA, they were very focused on that. So for each one, for grades 1 to 2, and then grades 3 to 6, there's a teacher's guide. So this is the teacher's guide for grades 1 to 2. I know that they've got my stuff in there. And then the artist who's amazing, I love her stuff, Amy Movold. She's Cree and Métis. And this is basically a 2-week plan, but I think, you could do it throughout the year. It could be something that was spread out, or, however you'd like to use it. But there are videos that are available for each one. They have songs. There's an activity booklet, which I'll show you as well. There's questions already developed in here, extensions. So everything's been done like that. I think they did an amazing job. Besides they took some of the ideas like here in the corner, like why the eagle and purple here is, something particular, because they wanted to know specific things that were pretty much across all Indigenous cultures. So that's kind of thing that I've included here. And then respect, and like I said, why the buffalo, the bison on the side. So give them some different different ideas and things like that. So anyways, you get the general idea of that. And I'm going to show you the activity booklet. Oh, April, thank you. Yeah, you use the resources somewhere. Yeah, I love. They did such a good job with it. So happy with that. And then for the young ones, you've got, you know, the matching. When you get to the older units, you'll see that, you know, obviously they do more writing, right? So it's very developmental. For the young ones, identifying, we use the song 7 from William Prince in both of them. And he's one Junos, he's amazing. And then of course, they're doing a lot more drawing, like representational type of learning. And then the teacher can write underneath, or if the kids are in that beginning stage of writing, of course, and they're trying, they can write down there as well. So about respect. So for each of the aspects for character, joining it to the animals so the kids remember, talking about what each one means. And what I really like too is some of these ideas are tough, right? Like the idea of courage. What does courage really mean, right? That idea. But even just getting like the concept of wisdom for young ones especially, that's a tough one. That's a tough one for older people. But you know, I like how that they've done here is, like, for instance, pick one person that made a positive difference in your life. You know, draw a picture of that person. You know, how did you gain wisdom from them? How do you say thank you to them? And humility, again, is another concept of just beyond a lot of people. What does that mean? Right. And then it's about, you know, draw a picture of yourself in the circle and write your roles and responsibilities outside the circle. So, you know, what is it that you do? And, you know, 'cause sometimes there's a lot of things that we do even as kids and we don't recognize that. So that's good. Anyway, so yeah, and then and there's the one available for the older kids, as you can see. And like I said, all these links will be in the slides when you guys get them. And then I have this teacher's guide that's from K-8. I want to show you. It does actually accompany well, you can tell it's a bit older because it's a video series, but I don't think you need to have that in particular because there's lots of resources online now that cover that. But it does have some interesting information in it. There, like I said, they've got a DVD series. It's $160, but like I said, I think that just you could use a lot of the things that are in here, since you already have a lot of information online. And it's just talking about making those connections, you know, to basically your ancestors and to your grandparents, and looking at, you know, the animals, what do they represent, you know, and it just gives you some more ideas, I think, for teaching. It does have making and using a talking stick, and I have expressed this a few times already this school year, that I came across an article just at the end of last year talking about appropriation, because I'm preparing a session to do on that, and being very careful about using a talking stick if you haven't purchased it from somebody who is First Nations or Indigenous, or they haven't taught you how to do it. Maybe just use a feather or a rock or something like that until then, just because it is actually a cultural item, and could be offensive to some people. So just putting that out there for people. You do what you will, but you know, because I know a lot of people like to use the talking stick, but again, there's teachings that need to be passed on for each thing. For instance, when I made my drum and my rattle, I had a friend who's is a knowledge keeper, and she gave me that information and passed it on to me before I did it, so that I was doing it properly. And then I would pass on those teachings to my children. That's the hope, right? As we keep doing that. Anyways, there's a couple of documents there for you guys to look at that. Just going to keep on time here. And then we're going to look at high school character education, or even in, you know, to the later junior high, you know, like grade 9 and above. This is a really great website as well. This is Tribal Trade, and Tribal Trade is a retail site. However, she has I can't remember the lady's name, but she's developed so many amazing resources. There's stuff on the medicine wheel that I've used on this, on smudging, just a bunch of different things. And she's on Anishinaabe as well, so that's another reason I like to use her stuff especially when we're talking about something like the 7 grandfather teachings. So this is brief, but it's something that you can also use for the older kids to teach them about it.
Have you heard of the 7 grandfather teachings? Watch this video for the original story of the 7 grandfather teachings that have been passed down to us from our Anishinaabe elders. I'm Mallory Graham, Anishinaabeg from tribaltradeco.com. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for new videos every week on smudging, the Indigenous culture, and Native teachings. If you've never heard of these 7 grandfather teachings before, or if you want to know more about the importance of these 7 teachings to Indigenous people, then we're here to share the teaching of the 7 grandfathers that is so important to the Anishinaabe Nation. The Indigenous people of North America have different stories and traditional teachings amongst the different tribes and nations. The Ojibwe teaching tells us that there were 7 grandfathers that were given the responsibility by the Creator to watch over the people on Mother Earth. These 7 grandfathers were very powerful spirits. They recognized that life was not good for the people on Mother Earth. The people on Turtle Island were living in a negative, unhealthy way, and the grandfathers wanted to help them. The 7 grandfathers decided to give the gift of these 7 teachings or gifts to an innocent young child who hadn't been corrupted yet and still could learn how to live a good life. A young child was chosen to take on the role of receiving these gifts and first met the 7 grandfathers who were all sitting in a lodge that was said to be the source of all knowledge. The teaching tells us that when the gifts were given to the child, he didn't know what they were. The child had to travel the earth for an entire lifetime to learn what each of these 7 gifts were. And every 7 years, the child met a spirit animal that explained to him what one of the gifts was and what it meant. The first gift of the 7 grandfather teachings was the gift of wisdom. Wisdom means to cherish knowledge and to know what is true and what is right. It is the ability to think and to act using knowledge. The teaching tells us to use your own gifts wisely and to live your life by them. Recognize your differences and those of others in a kind and respectful way. The second gift of the 7 grandfather teachings was the gift of love. To love means to care for yourself and care for others. Once you know how to love and to love others, then you will truly be at peace. To feel love will also show you the balance of life and for all creation. The third gift of the 7 grandfather teachings was the gift of respect. Respect means to honor all creation. Do not waste things and be mindful of the balance of all living things. It teaches us to share and to give away what you do not need. Respect also means to treat others the way that you would like to be treated. Have you guys heard of the 7 grandfather teachings before? Please let us know in the comments below. The fourth gift of the 7 grandfather teachings was the gift of bravery. Bravery means to face life with courage. Defend what you believe in and what is right for your community, your family, and for yourself. Make positive choices and have conviction with your decisions. Face your fears and allow yourself to live your life. The fifth teaching of the 7 grandfather teachings is the gift of honesty. Honesty means to go through your life with integrity and to be honest with yourself. Recognize and accept who you are. The teaching tells us to not seek to deceive others or yourself. The sixth gift of the 7 grandfather teachings is the gift of humility. Humility means to be humble, to live life selflessly and not selfishly. Try to have a modest view for how important you are in the circle of life. The teaching tells us to respect your place and to carry your pride with your people, and also to praise acknowledgments of everyone around you. Now, the 7th gift of the 7 grandfather teachings is the gift of truth. Truth means to show honor and sincerity in all that you say and do. Be true to yourself and to all other things. Truth gives us the ability to act without regret and to live with the facts of reality. The 7 grandfather teachings teach us that in order for people to be happy and healthy, they must seek to develop themselves spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally. The teaching demonstrates that each one of us represent the child in the story, going through this journey of discovery and personal development. Now you know the 7 grandfather teachings that are so important to the Anishinaabe Nation and other Indigenous people.
Stop it there. So just another approach to it and explaining a little bit more detail, the character part of it. I also like to show you as an example of a lesson plan. I found this one that I thought was really cool. I taught music and drama, so I love it whenever you can fit this in. And I always think it's good that, especially like English classes, even social studies classes, you can still do drama in there. It doesn't have to be, just relegated for the older kids into that one section. But they've got some ideas on here. There's a Seven Grandfathers teaching script, and there's a video that goes along with it. There's how to do storyboarding, which is really cool for story writing. And then you can do, you know, the character traits, you can do symbolism and animal representation. There's open and neutral scenes. So there's just a few really cool things on here that I thought might be something that you guys might be interested in using in different ways in your classrooms. And I'm gonna
Have you heard of?
There we go. All right. So I want to look at some practical applications then, right? I've given you, you know, the overview of what is it. You know, here's some examples, at least some lesson plan ideas that you could use. I do want to show you this one at a Lethbridge school that they used. Here we go. And just really cool. There's a video that accompanies, but I'm not gonna go over that. I just want to show you, you know, just sorry, it's gonna spool. I hope it doesn't start to play because sometimes it just doesn't. Of course, it's just gonna mess with me right now. Okay, hopefully it doesn't just get really loud. So it was Barnwell School in Lethbridge, and they used this in their classrooms. What they did it as a whole school. Oh, yeah, it's going to do that, I think. So the whole school was involved in it, and what they did was they had each of the parts of the school broken into these groups, right? So they, for each of the character traits, they broke essentially the school into 7 groups. And then particularly the older kids that had gone through it already, and I'm sure now the whole school, by the time we're getting to this year, because this was a few years ago, has gone through it. So they would have had the new kids coming in grade 7 that would have been the ones that would be learning it. So the kids in grade 9 and grade 8 would help to teach the younger ones, because they're also grouped with them as well in some ways, right, depending on how many kids are in the school at one time. Then they even did some land-based learning stuff, like they did it outside, and they just used this, you know, really to teach the kids. And like I said, you can see they did some jigsaw, they, you know, working the kids together so they all learn all of the different traits, you know, and yeah, so and it was just amazing. Like they used it at assemblies and things like that, just to reinforce, you know, that good behavior. And when the video, if you want to watch it later with that news report, you know, just they show some examples of the kids working together and things like that. And from what they say at the school anyways, they had a really great time doing it, and they really helped a lot with some of those behavioral issues too, right, when we talk about that. But it was also a step towards, for them, feeling like it was part of being part of reconciliation, because you're bringing in Indigenous ways of knowing and being into the school, and it becomes inherent in everything you do. The idea is, if you use something like, you know, these 7 character traits, and you relate it back to, you know, for instance, the medicine wheel, because they all relate to each other. And then you have things like sharing circles, like they did that, and they had a teepee outside for the school and things like that that the kids got to use. And sometimes they had an elder come in. You really, you know, bringing that knowledge into the school, and you're helping the kids as they grow up, especially to appreciate Indigenous cultures and understand, you know, the first Canadians, you know, people here on Turtle Island have been here, and it's a greater understanding for both sides, right? And really bringing that community part together. So that, you know, I think that's just really cool that it's a great way to do that, because you're teaching the kids something really good and really positive. I wanted to show you, this is on Empowering the Spirit. Again, I don't have time to go through every single resource that I have here for you guys, but there is a brief video on here as well, and you can watch on YouTube if you want. And it really goes over a lot of the same things I was just talking about, or that was in that video. But I want to show you this site because, as you notice here, there's this line in the middle, so it's not so annoying. There's some key understandings here that you can interact with. So there's informed pedagogical decisions, First Nation teaching strategies, the virtues, 7 sacred teachings, and core values. And of course, you'll notice they all relate to each other anyway. So if I click on the 7 sacred teachings, it just gives you a little bit more information in regard to that, and like the virtues. And so anyway, so it just all relates to each other. But what's really cool, it's the most cool, is this part at the very bottom. So using the 7 sacred teachings in classrooms and schools, So there's information here for connecting to character and citizenship education. And then ideas for partnering between grade levels, which is one thing I really loved about what that Lethbridge school did, because they're working, getting the older kids to teach the younger ones, which is also, part of Indigenous culture, is to be always helping those who are around you, and particularly those that are new. Example for me was on Sunday, there was a friend of mine brought a young lady that's in recovery right now. She's trying to recover from drugs and alcohol, and she's very young, and she'd never been in a sweat lodge before. And so he said that, and because the men sit on one side and the women sit on the other side, and so he's had said to us, somebody over there, hey ladies, we all call each other aunties and uncles anyways, so aunties help her out, right? And so I helped her through it, because it's quite a process. There's 4 rounds in the sweat lodge, and it gets very, very, very hot. And if you're not used to it, I mean, it's dark, it's pitch black in there, other than seeing the rocks that are glowing. Occasionally a little spark comes off of them, but it's pitch black in there, and you're with people you don't know. It can be kind of, overwhelming and frightening, and brings up a lot of emotions, especially when you're trying to recover from these things. And so that was that was me. I would take her and I would look after her, and, make sure that she was okay, and walk her through the process and teach her. So that's what we all do for each other. And regardless of the fact that I am a teacher already, could have been anybody in the group that was closest to her that could help. So like there's ideas for developing school-wide themes, looking at desired student behaviors, right? What could be better at getting kids to, cooperate and get along with each other, than using the 7 grandfather teachings? And it really works well too. I've done sessions on the sharing circles, right? And using that. And I've got one that I'll be doing in the future on sharing circles and restorative justice. And when you use all of these things together, particularly like the 7 sacred teachings, these are character traits, you can always relate them back for students. You can always say, well, let's look at the traits, from these, these different animals represent, and what do they mean, and why are they important? And, the other thing is too, because you're not using a human being to say, well, this human being behaved this way and you should behave this way, right? You're saying, well, here's an animal, and this is what they represent. You're not saying you have to be like a certain person, which can be very, very hard for kids, right? Like, I can't live up to the other human being. But here you're saying, well, these are animals that embody these ideas. Yeah, so let's show you some other. So this is that McIntyre media I had showed you earlier. They do have this information here. There's a little video about it, and just some related information toward it. And then this is, I like this one as well, because this is the 7 grandfather teachings. It gives you a little bit more of a pedagogical background on it as well, for teachers. And it gets into the Anishinaabe words as well. And if you don't have, like, I mean, I don't know how to pronounce these words in Anishinaabe either, and I'm just learning Cree, and they're very different. But there are apps and things like that. There's also that First Nations language site that you can use, but then there's also an activity here as well that you can use. And then they do have a link for Ojibwe teachings. Oh, okay, so that's not gonna let me go there because my server's blocking it. Okay. Do you want to look at my email? Okay. I'm actually gonna go back. Do have a little bit of time. I'm gonna show you guys that one video then. Hold on. Oh shoot, sorry. I didn't think I would have time, but I will. Let's do it. And then we can go to questions. I'm just trying to make sure I get through everything because I don't want to miss time. There you go. Of course, now when I want to show it, it's not going to spool in time. Come on. There we go.
Who is learning. As questions continue to surround the provincial government's proposed curriculum, one school is bringing more Indigenous elements into its learning. Barnwell School will use the 7 grandfather teachings in its classrooms this school year. The teachings are guiding principles representing community values, including love, respect, and honesty.
The 7 grandfather teachings are a fantastic way to bring character education into our school. We started thinking we might use it as a health program, and before too long, our teachers all got really excited and on board about the idea of it being a whole school initiative.
Students will be separated into groups named after the animal that represents each teaching, with each group learning one of the teachings throughout the year and sharing what they've learned with the rest of the school.
We'll jigsaw that all together so that by the end of the school year, we've worked through everything at least once. And then the next year, the students will be remixed and they'll be into another spirit animal, so that by the time they're finished at Barnwell School, they will have been in at least every spirit animal once.
Tracy Forbes, a teacher and the school's Indigenous ally, says it's already popular among the junior high students, with nearly half of them participating in a class dedicated to the teachings last year.
We started an Indigenous appreciation class with our grade 7, 8s, and 9s, so that they could actually start learning about the 7 grandfather teachings. And now what we plan to do is we can lean on them a lot more heavily in September, and they can actually start doing some of the teachings with our younger students.
Forbes says that while the teachings will be used for character development, she feels education is also an important piece towards achieving reconciliation.
It took 2 cultures for us to kind of get to the situation that we're at right now. And I think it's going to take 2 cultures for us to get out.
Eric Bay, Global News.
Yeah, so I like that idea too. And you'll notice they have, I'm going to cancel it. Go to the next thing. You notice that they have a teepee there. And that was one thing I was learning about just at Truth and Reconciliation Day. I was helping my friend Flora Johnson. She's an artist and she calls herself a maker because she makes everything. She's amazing here in Calgary. And she was helping to organize Cakes walk in Calgary, and then the activities and the performances that went on after. And one of the things I got to learn was some of the teepee teachings, which is really cool. We friends went out to the forest and had cut down timber already for these 30-foot teepee poles. And so we carried them out of the forest, did that one night, and I ended up with bruises all over my shoulders, which was interesting. And then the next couple of days we were peeling teepee poles and cutting them to put up the teepees, and then went down to Shaw Millennium Park on Friday night with the flatbed that somebody had generously donated to use to put up the teepee poles with some friends. And so the guys were putting up the teepee poles, and she was teaching me about that. And each of the teepee poles as well represent a character trait and a behavior. And the first three are really important and do that. So all of these things are tied together. So, you saw the kids in that video in the teepee. Well, exactly. That ties in as well. So if they had elders that are teaching them or anybody like that, right there and then they would have been able to do some more of those teachings as well and relate all of them together because they're all relatable. They all interact with each other. Anyways, I do have, a few more minutes left at the end. I'm glad because I have, if anybody has any questions, I'm going to do escape from this and I'm going to stop share because I know the last couple times that I've done this session in particular, people had a lot of questions or a lot of things they wanted to share compared to other sessions that I've done. Turn some light here. So I'm going to do this stop recording on here too. So